All right, so welcome everybody. First of all, I want to start out with why I'm here, why I became part of Max Living. I think you all know the story of my brother. That's really what drives me. So that's actually a picture of my brother Jamie in 2009, just before he's getting ready to start chemo. So my brother and some of his friends put together a little party for him, basically give him a bunch of video game stuff to do when he was feeling sick, going through chemo. When Jamie got diagnosed with cancer in 2008, there was things I knew, like he never had his spine checked, that he should have done, but there was I had a lot of questions back then, not a lot of answers. And so when that happened, I went looking for answers, went looking for what do we do, how do we get him healthy right now, how do we stop from having to happen in the future, and that's when I came across Max Living. And that's what really drove me in this direction and really changed my whole path, and and probably opened my heart for people as well a lot more when something that close happens to you. But this is a big thing where we found out not only why he got sick, but also what are the things that we do to make sure that doesn't come back, and how does he rebuild his health. So that's how I got to Max Living. And so this is what we're going to be focusing on. So those of you who've been around for a long time, you'll notice there's been a rebranding of Max Living, so everything looks different now. There's a ton more resources coming out. It's going to be a lot more patient-centered, so there's going to be a lot more benefits for you as well. So Max Living is based on 5 core essentials of wellness. So it is that you have to have a healthy spine and nervous system. We know that because that runs everything. You have to have proper nutrients in your body. You have to have the right fuel, and the nutrients can't be poisoning you, right? You got to make sure there's a good mindset. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. It's the why behind why you do things. Either make it easy, or it's going to give you excuses why not to do it. Oxygen and exercise. We're actually not spending a lot of time on that tonight just because of time. So that is an important piece. If you're not sure what to do, I'm just going to recommend you get the Max T3 program. You can go onto our website. It's basically an online version. You can get it on any computer, and I think it costs $10. So it makes it really, really simple. If you've got any questions on that, I recommend just get that product. So if you go to our website, Castlefield Chiropractic, I think there's a thing called Store, something like that. Any of my team around? Matt, are you around? Anyone looked at the new website? on our new website is how to get the products. You know? Okay, so nobody's going to check it out while I'm talking, and going to let you know, okay? Because our website just changed as well, so I'm not sure, I don't know all the ways around. And then we're talking about toxins. So I was talking with my brother, like his big things are, he was doing great. He ate awesome. He exercised five times a week. Never had his spine checked, and turned out he had no curve in his neck, so that was a biggie for him. And toxins was never on his radar. So those are the big things that got him. So we're going to be talking about all of these. You don't have to be great at all of them, right? Because some are more important than others. But wherever you are now, you want to look at what's the next step I can take? What's the one thing I can add and get moving forward here? Because if you're doing, like if you've been here for years, there might be one little thing or one addition in one of the essentials you need to add. If this is your first workshop, it might be like drinking out of a fire hose. Just pick one thing, the most important thing, and take action on that. And then you can build on that in the future as well. All right, so why we need to change. So in those 5 essentials we're going to be talking about tonight, so whether you're here because you want to lose weight, I know it's the new year, a lot of people have weight loss goals. If you're like Rose, you were on medication, or you're on medication right now and you want to get off of that, or whether you're doing great, but you just want to make sure 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 plus years, you're still doing great. This is how we go. I'm going to give you guys some information here. It's all going to be in those essentials. So it's about following this path. So it's knowing about what you want, and then you're going to get the tools of how to pull that off tonight. So before you go on, so on the website, in the top right corner it says shop, and then you're just going to go down. It'll be a drop-down list. Okay, so Max T3 will be in there. Okay, so top right corner shop. All right, so you'll notice world obesity. We are the 4th fattest country in the world. So you notice everyone in the top 4, so the US is the fattest, we're number 4, but everyone in those top 4, all over 20%, right? Look at places like Belgium, they're only at 12%. Wow. And Belgium's known for places like ice cream and burgers and smoking, right? Beer, right? But they're only at 12. Or you look at places like Italy, they're known for pasta and pizza, right? So it can't just be the food. We're doing something wrong if we're all the way up here at 22%. In North America, we do take the most prescription drugs in the world. So our population makes up 5% of the population. We take over 70% of all the prescription drugs in the world. This number here, so this is between 2000 and 2010, and so it looked at all these different countries. That is per capita spending. So that's not what the country spends, that's what each person spends on prescription drugs per year. And it doubled. It doubled between 2000 and 2010. Right? And so some of the numbers are that we spend the most on healthcare in North America. We are some of the fattest people in the world. Right? So some of the highest obesity rates, and also take the most prescription drugs. Right? We're not getting a good return for all those dollars being spent on healthcare. The issue now with all the medications out there is so the average drug label lists 70 side effects. 70. Right? So if you take two medications, how many side effects do you have now?
140.
140, right?
Plus.
And so I'm glad you'll answer that, because that's what everyone thinks. It's 70 plus 70, but it's not. It's 70 times 70. Because each side effect will have a side effect with the other side effect. So it's not 140, it's 4,900 side effects that you have now potential for dealing with. And this is the issue. So right now, the average person in North America takes 4 medications every day. 4. And so just do the math on that. How many side effects are they exposed to? Right? And if that's the average across every single person, like, I know many of you used to take some and you don't take any. Many of you take none, I take none. So if some of us are taking none, someone else has taken 8. Right? And this is the issue out there, and this is why we're getting into such a bad spot. Now, the bigger issue for most people is not that you still want to deal with the side effects, but I think deep down everyone knows it's not fixing anything. People want to get to the heart of the problem, not just cover it up. And so that's one of our biggest issues with medication. Yeah, it may take away the symptom, but it's not fixing anything. In North America, we get fatter and sicker as we age as compared with other countries. But it doesn't have to be this way. This doesn't have to be the story, because everyone's kind of been led to believe that over time as you age that health declines, right? But that is not the truth. That's not the way it has to be, but we need to change what we do. We need to change our behaviors, we need to change our actions. There's a huge difference between time and age, right? Age is just a thing on the calendar. But the time you put into your health will determine how healthy you are as you age. That makes sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. So you got to think about what time, what investment are you putting in, because that's what you're going to be deducting from when you're older. Now the good news is, it's got nothing to do with your genes. So that's the great news. So we do know that heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, cancer, they're all lifestyle diseases. Which means if you can lifestyle yourself into it, you can also lifestyle yourself out of it. It's just going to take different action to get that. So, as Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy, said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used to create them. So, before we change anything, we have to change the way we think. And it's not just the way you think about your health, but it's the way you think about your ability to really thrive and have an abundant life. And so that's what I want to get into here. So Dr. Carolyn Leaf, a neuroscientist, says positive and negative habits are developed by the same process in the brain. Thought patterns and neural pathways are created and based on what you think about. So what you focus on expands. People heard that saying before? Yeah. So it's what's the soundtrack going up in here? What are you focused on? So I want you to watch this video about how we rewire the brain.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, There are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So what you focus on is what gets priority. So when it comes to health, like if your mindset, your focus is that it's hard to be healthy, then you're going to look at things like, it takes a lot of time to go shopping for all this food, it takes time to cook it, it takes time, I got to get my adjustments, so I got to find a time to exercise, right? If we're focused on it's all this time, it's so hard to be healthy, then you're going to find excuses and reasons to not do it, right? But if instead your mindset, your focus is, if I can find the time or invest the time to do some of these little things, and you think about the dividend it's going to pay off in the future, right? So if you're thinking like we all kind of got these two choices to make, we can take the path that goes to the nursing home, or we can take the path that's maybe like running with our grandkids on the beach, right? But the decisions we make now, where we invest our time and our resources, what's going to take us there. So it depends where that mindset is, and do you think it's hard to be healthy, or do you think if I take the right steps, then I can be healthy? So that's something you want to examine for yourself, and they're going to be all over the place. So if there's anything that you've wanted in the future or in the past but you've never got it, there's some sort of what we call a limiting belief there. There's something like you think it's hard to be healthy, or you think it's hard to do this. You want to start going back and examining those and start thinking about your thought behind it. Now, 90% of the thoughts that you have today, you also had yesterday. So it does take time to carve out these new pathways. What we want to talk about is how we create these belief cycles and how they get reinforced. So the belief cycle works like this, that you'll have a belief or a thought that will create a feeling inside of you, which will spur you to action, which then has some results and starts to cycle over again. So my hope is from the information that you get here tonight is that you get the belief and the thought that this is something you can do. This is easy to do. And I'm hoping you'll leave here with a feeling of hope. Wherever you're going. If you're trying to get over disease, you're trying to get better, you're trying to maintain your health, you have hope for that. And then lead to action. So you guys all got emails. If anyone didn't get emailed, we can print it out for you, but the challenge that we have. So it's a 30-day challenge. It is all laid out. So my hope is that you have the belief and you have hope and you actually take action, like start the challenge. Right? And the result, if you start the challenge, is you're going to lose 5, 10, 15, maybe you'll lose as many as 30 pounds in 30 days. Right? And so that then result is going to reinforce some new thoughts and beliefs. Like maybe you're going to think, you know what? Maybe I can actually do this. Maybe getting healthy isn't so hard. And maybe the new feeling is something like, you know what? Maybe I can get off that medication. And the new action is maybe you take more steps as far as the nutrition and the exercise or avoiding toxins. And all of a sudden, the new result is maybe you lose another 10 pounds, right? And you get off that medication. And then it reinforces new beliefs and new thoughts, and you keep taking action that way. So it doesn't need to be a monster step, right? It doesn't have to be this big, giant step, but just each little thing keeps going in the right direction, but it's keep going forward. Does that make sense to everybody? Now the challenge is, this is how positive emotions work, it works the exact same way for our limiting beliefs or our negative emotions. They get wired in the same way, right? So just like if someone's scared of a dog, there's a bad incident before, the dog doesn't need to be vicious, but if they see a dog, they're scared of it because it's a hardwired response. It's a pathway in the brain. So it's the same thing. We're all going to have these limiting beliefs. Now, there's two mindsets. There's what's called the fixed mindset and what's called the growth mindset. Most of these are wired into us when we're little. From our upbringing, what we get told as children, all those types of things. And so you want to identify kind of where you're at. The growth mindset is going to pay way more dividends than the fixed mindset, though. So the fixed mindset is that success and health are based on luck. So there's nothing you can do, it's just kind of luck of the draw, right? Or a growth mindset, it says that skills for anything, that they can be learned and they can be practiced. So two different mindsets there. Now the voice you listen to will determine the outcome of the experience for you. So the voice you listen to is going to determine the outcome of the experience. Like Rose, before you came into our office and you were on the insulin pump and everything else, you were told you'd be on that for how long? For life, right? Yeah, forever, right? And exactly right, and if she stayed in that same thinking and the same action of the medical doctors that were helping her at that time, she would be. But she chose to take different action and have different thinking that, you know what, I can do this. And now she's off, right? But it's starting to take the action that it's not luck, that, you know what, I can do something about this. So there's a fixed and a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset will avoid avoid challenges because of fear of failure, right? So if it's just a fixed mindset is just based on natural skill and afraid to change anything outside of that area where you're good because you might fail. Where a growth mindset more embraces the challenges as an opportunity for learning. They don't care whether there's success or not, but they're intrigued by the opportunity to learn something new. And that's why I'm going to encourage you to start looking at those opportunities, looking at things that way, to start moving forward. So the number one thing that holds people back is that fear of failure. And that's what makes most people never want to start in the first place. Right? So if we're talking about the challenge that we're talking about here that you guys all have emailed to you, some people look at that and they're like, I don't know if I can pull that off, so they never even start in the first place. Right? And it's that fear of failure, it's that fixed mindset, where Henry Ford says, failure is simply an opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently, with different actions. Right? Because what you really want to focus on is changing your what-ifs. Most people, we're just hardwired, we're pretty pessimistic. Right? We think of the what-ifs and all the negative stuff. What if I don't? What if I fail? All this sort of stuff. But what if you change those what-ifs instead of what if I fail? What if you win? Right? What if you're awesome at it? Right? Then what does that picture look like? Does that make sense to everybody? So that's the big thing in the fixed and the growth mindset. Change your what-ifs. Stop thinking about all the negatives, but think about what if you succeed? What if you win at this thing? What if things turn out great? That's going to help move you forward as opposed to thinking of all the turmoil that could happen. Right? Because like when they say fear is false evidence appearing real. What's on the other end of that? Nothing. Whatever you made up in your head. There's nothing there. Right? There's nothing on the other side of fear other than the picture we made up. So Thomas Edison. Everyone knows him for the light bulb. He said, I've not failed, I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work. So he made 10,000 prototypes before he got a light bulb to work. Right? He kept going. He didn't stop. And that's when we talk about the growth mindset. Right? It says it's whatever. Okay, so from each one that went wrong, he learned something from it. He knew what didn't work, tried something else. 10,000 times. That's pretty impressive. I probably wouldn't have gone 10,000 times, but that's what we're talking about. So I was talking to my team about this. is that nothing worthwhile is accomplished. There's going to be mishaps, there's going to be stumbles, there's going to be all these things along the way. I always talk to my team with what's called fail forward. Meaning whatever failure, you've learned something from it, and you know the next action to take moving forward from there. Because the only true failure is going to come from just not trying at all. That's the only way you can fail. If not, you're going to learn something. So if the voice that you listen to determines the outcome, we want to start examining, so what's the soundtrack that we got playing in our heads? Right? So you might have seen a few things going through there, like maybe there's, I have some of those things that I say to myself, or I've been in the fixed mindset sometimes, and we've all been there, right? One time or another. But you want to start thinking, so how do you change that soundtrack that's playing in the back of your head? One thing that they look at all people who've had success in different arenas, they all have these, whether they be incantations, affirmations, things they say to themselves that is setting themselves up for success, telling them what they want. And I'm going to encourage you, at our last workshop, I shared some of mine, I talked about that. If you're not doing this, I would encourage you to start doing these things. So like, whatever goal you have, like if you want to lose 10 pounds, and you weigh 200 pounds right now, just start saying, I weigh 190 pounds, and I'm taking the action to pull that off every day. You got to start telling yourself you're doing it, right? Because without this, we get so busy, our mind is so full of all the clutter that's going on, that we never actually move forward on what's important to us. So, like, I start, like, my mornings are started this way. So I read myself affirmations. I'll share a couple with you to give you some ideas. If you haven't created yours, I'm going to encourage you, that's something you should do tonight. Spend some time tomorrow morning. I have a list of 31 that I read to myself every morning. It started with like 10 or 11, but I've added over time. And so I don't care if it's 1, 2, whatever, but you want to start thinking, so what do you really want? And you want to make affirmations about this. So like one of my affirmations is, miracles follow me and happen everywhere I go. Another one's, I'm a fast learner. I remember things after the first read, and everything of value goes into play efficiently and effortlessly. I absorb information and skills like a sponge to be instantaneously rebroadcast to improve the lives of all those around me. What you're trying to get from your affirmation, you want to paint the picture so you can see it in your head of the action happening. Another one I have is, I will lead Toronto to max living. Like a lighthouse in a sea of darkness, people from the north, the east, the south, and the west come from hours away to learn and engage in the principles I teach to change their lives and the lives of generations to come. Because you know what, the nagging thought, if I'm not rewiring my brain like this, is that, you know what, that's a pretty audacious goal, right? That we're going to change healthcare in North America, right? Is what we're up against. But if I keep rewiring my brain like that, then we're going to work at it, right? And we're going to do our best to empower people to take control of their health, regardless of the outcome. We're going to keep going. But if I were just to listen to all the stats out there, I probably wouldn't even get out of bed in the morning, right? But if I'm rewiring myself this way, that's what helps. Or another one I have is, I have boundless energy like the sun. I'm red hot and on fire all the time, right? I tell myself that every morning, right? Gets me going. So you want to start thinking, so if you're like, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm whatever, start thinking affirmations of what you really want and tell yourself that's what you are, right? There's already enough people around you that probably tell you you're not what you want to be, right? So start telling yourself what you want and start moving forward. So affirmations are a huge thing I want to make sure that everyone's adding from this workshop as an action step. So hands up, how many people here are over 40? Over 40? Yeah. I think just my staff, probably these two guys and those two guys there are not. Okay, so everyone's over 40, right? Keep your hand up if you also don't smoke. Okay, so that's still most of us, right? So if you're over 40 and you don't smoke, you have a 70 to 80% chance you'll die of heart disease, cerebrovascular cancer, or neurodegenerative disease. If you follow what the current numbers are. So if you're over 40, you don't smoke, you're doing something that's considered healthy, you got a 70-80% chance that you're going to get these 4. So these are the big 4 that we're going to make sure that we conquer by learning the things that we learned today and take action. Does that make sense? This doesn't have to be it, but this is what the current numbers are. So, number 1 thing is we need to change what we eat. So the standard North American diet in Max Living, we refer to that as SAD. That's just kind of the acronym for the standard North American diet. So this is where all our calories come from. Number one source of calories is grain-based desserts. Number two is breads. Number three is chicken, shockingly. Chicken, yeah. But these are our issues, is where we're getting our calories from, where our energy's coming from. Right? Then we have like pop, pizza, alcohol. So this is what the standard North American diet is, and that's why it doesn't work, and that's why we've got to change. So number one thing we've got to change is sugar in our diets. So sugar and diabetes. So I'm going to get a little scientific here, but I just want you to understand how your body works. So your body uses glucose, which is sugar, for fuel. So whatever you eat at some point does get broken down to glucose, if there's any glucose in it, right? So obviously like a candy bar, really quick. Piece of bread, within about 4 seconds, right? A vegetable, there's going to be carbohydrates in there that will get broken down to sugar, but a lot of fiber, so it happens slowly. That's why vegetables are better than like candy bars. It's because the fiber slows down the release of the sugar. So the glucose comes in, insulin goes up to bind the sugar, and then what it does, it connects to a receptor to take the sugar into the cell to be used for energy. Does that make sense? And you have about 20,000 receptors on every cell. You got a lot to make this process happen properly. Now, if we have too much things that are sugar or turn into sugar, all of a sudden we have really high glucose in the bloodstream. So what the body does, it releases more insulin. So now we have high insulin as well. But that high insulin actually burns out the receptors. So now these receptors get burnt out, so they don't work anymore. So you go from 20,000 down to about 5,000. You take 75% of them, they get burnt out, they don't work. So what happens now is you have high sugar in your bloodstream, you have high insulin, but no receptors to get the sugar out into the cell to be used as energy. So it stays in the bloodstream. That's when you get diagnosed with diabetes. That's what drives inflammation. So anything that's driven by inflammation, heart disease, cancer, all these things, arthritis, those all start going up because you have so much inflammation happening inside of your body. Does that make sense to everybody? So this is the reason why we got to get that sugar piece under control. And most of the time it's not sugar. So, math test. Bob has 36 candy bars, he eats 29. What does he have now? He's got diabetes. Now diabetes, and you guys have seen with Rose, and we got a bunch of other testimonials as well. This is reversible. It is reversible. Diabetes is reversible. It's a study that was done at McMaster University, so good Canadian University. 41% of the people remained symptom-free after 3 months. After they decided they were still symptom-free 3 months after the study. Only 21% remained symptom-free if they went off the nutrition plan. So cut the results in half if they went back to their old nutrition. Only 14% remained symptom-free if they continued on insulin. The reason that happens, you're like, well, I thought that's what people are given. But what caused the receptors to burn out?
Overwork.
Overwork, and there's too much
Sugar.
there's too much sugar, which causes too much insulin. The insulin is what burns the insulin receptor out. So the medical solution to diabetes is push more insulin in, which, yes, will bind more sugar. But it's actually going to burn out more receptors long term. That makes sense? So the insulin's never the answer. That's a short-term solution. But people are given it for life as the solution. We've got to change the reason there's so much sugar floating around, and then the sensitivity, get these receptors to heal. We've got to get them to heal. We've got to get sugar out so that the insulin can heal those receptors.
Can they heal?
Yes, absolutely, they will heal. Yeah, you can totally heal those, but again, so like for Rose to be off of her insulin pump, she's got more insulin receptors on her cells that are active now. Right? They're growing back, so now her body can hear it again. That makes sense to everyone? That's how it happens. So your body will rebuild that. So number one thing we want to do is cut the sugars and the things that turn to sugar. So these are our breads, these are our pastas, crackers, cookies, sauces, fruits, except for the berries, grapefruit, lemons, and limes. The reason is those are the low glycemic index or low sugar fruits. Okay? All the other ones, they're high sugar. And yes, like those fruits, they have some good enzymes and things in them, but if the sugar's too high, until you heal, you are still compounding the problem. You need to let the body heal first. Now, women can have about 6 teaspoons or 25 grams of sugar per day. That's what your body can handle. Men can have more, 9 teaspoons or 38 grams. 1 can of pop has 10 teaspoons of sugar or 44 grams. So if someone has 1 can of pop, you've already overdone it. You've already gone over the limit. And here's the scary thing. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And sugar is fuel for cancer. Like 100% fuels cancer. So a lot of people hear something like that and they're like, okay, so I'm going to avoid pop and I'll move to something healthier like a Sobe green tea, thinking that it's less sugar. But that has 61 grams of sugar, the same as if you ate half a Sara Lee cherry pie. But you look into that bottle, that looks like a healthy drink, right? So you need to be reading the ingredient list. And if it says sugar on it, you've got to be avoiding it. How many people like Starbucks? Any people go to Starbucks here? A couple people? So Starbucks, if you go for the big Starbucks peppermint white chocolate mocha with whipped cream, 95 grams of sugar. It's the same as eating 8.5 scoops of ice cream. If it were me, I'd pick the ice cream and get a tea or something like that, because the ice cream does look pretty good, right? But that's what that equals, and people have no idea. You see people walking out of there all the time with these big things, pumps of flavor and all that sort of stuff. Tons and tons of sugar. And so this is where it is. For most people, it's hidden in all this different stuff. So what are the sugars? So anything that ends in OSE, other than cellulose, everything else that ends in OSE is sugar. It's going to have all kinds of different names. The other one, corn. Anything that says corn with it, corn is our #1 source of sugar in North America. So anything with an OSE on the back of it, or corn, you want to be looking for on the label. You gotta minimize it or ideally get rid of it. So I've got a video for you, sugar and cancer.
Cantley, a Harvard professor and the head of the Beth Israel Deaconess Cancer Center, says when we eat or drink sugar, it causes a sudden spike in the hormone insulin, which can serve as a catalyst to fuel certain types of cancers.
What we're beginning to learn is that insulin can cause adverse effects in various tissues. And a particular concern is cancer.
Why? Nearly a third of some common cancers, including breast and colon cancers, have something called insulin receptors on their surface. Insulin binds to these receptors and signals the tumor to start consuming glucose.
So this is your body eating.
Every cell in our body needs glucose to survive. But the trouble is, these cancer cells also use it to grow.
So if you happen to have a tumor that has insulin receptors on it, then it will get stimulated to take up the glucose that's in the bloodstream. So rather than going into the fat or the muscle, the glucose now goes into the tumor, and the tumor uses it to grow.
So you've just seen that tumor turn blue, which is essentially reflective of the glucose going into it.
That's right.
So these cancers, much in the same way that muscle will say, hey, I'd like some of that glucose. The fat says, I would like some of that glucose. The cancers have learned how to do this themselves as well?
Yes, so they have evolved the ability to hijack that flow of glucose that's going by in the bloodstream into the tumor itself.
Lewis Cantley's research team is working on developing drugs that will cut off the glucose supply to cancer cells and keep them from growing. But until there's a breakthrough, Cantley's advice, don't eat sugar. And if you must, keep it to a minimum.
In fact, I live my life that way. I rarely eat sugar.
When you see a sugary drink, or if I were to offer you one, with all that you know, what's going through your mind?
I probably would turn it down and get a glass of water.
Smart advice, right? And so he says, until they have a breakthrough, just stop eating so much sugar. Right? So they're trying to create a miracle drug that you have full control over. Does that make sense to everybody? So we can do this, but again, it's changing the way we think about things. Now, the challenge is, it's not just sugar, but it's everything that turns to sugar. So that number one thing on that list, the number one thing that we consume, our number one source of sugar is grain-based desserts. And number two is the breads. So it's not, so people are like, I don't eat sugar. Most people don't, but it's all the stuff that turns to sugar. So you want to be getting rid of those, like grains are a huge piece you want to start eliminating. A quote I got from a colleague of mine, the whiter the bread, the quicker you're dead. that might help as well. Something on the core plan, so sprouted, stone ground, whole grain, those are okay. Because those don't break down so fast. Again, there's way more fiber, so the sugar is released so quick. That's why the berries are so good as well. They're very high in fiber, all the berries, so the fruit sugar is released much slower. So those are grains that are acceptable.
How about rye bread?
Unless it's sprouted or whole grain or stone ground, it's still going to turn. Yeah, still turn to sugar. I want to talk specifically about all bran because this usually gets recommended for anyone dealing with diabetes. You want to get your all bran. If you read the ingredient list, though, wheat bran's number two thing is sugar. Right? So this is what you have to read the label. This is where people get tricked on this stuff. Stevia is a great sweetener because that is from a plant. It has a sweet taste, 0 glucose. So there's going to be no instant response in the body. That will allow the body to repair those receptors. The challenge is, because now stevia is becoming more and more popular, this is pure stevia, that's all it is. So here's Purevia stevia, where they've taken stevia, but they have ingredients as dextrose, which is sugar. Then they put stevia in it, and they put some powder and some flavor to boot. Right? So this is where you got to get good at reading labels. This is not what you read. You want to look at the ingredients. So again, anything with an OSE, that is sugar. You want to be staying away from that. Another thing I got from my friends down in the U.S., if it grew on a plant, eat it. If it grew in a plant, don't. So man-made, stay away from it.
Got it.
You got it now?
Yeah.
That didn't catch the first time?
Yeah.
So if it grew on a plant, we're good. If they made it in a plant, it's not good. Not good. Not good. All right. So a lot of people talk about, people feel that, I've had this so many times, that we need grains, we need these fruits to get all of the nutrition we're supposed to get. But if you look at a nutrient density chart, the first 13 things on the list are all vegetables. The 14th thing is strawberries, which is a berry. Right? If you really think you need grains, 1 bowl of spinach gives you the same nutrients as 14 bowls of oatmeal. So you do not need grains. That is, you do not need grains, you don't need the sugary fruits if you're going to get the nutrition.
What about rice?
What's that?
What about rice?
Inside the core plan, if it's wild whole grain rice, yes. So there's a difference here. So I'm talking about a couple different things. Core plan and advanced plan. The plan you have, that 30-day challenge, is going to be advanced plan. So if your goal is like, I'm healthy right now, I'm just looking to maintain where I'm at right now, the core plan is good for you. If you're like, I'd like to make some health changes. I'm looking to get rid of some inflammation, I'm looking to lose weight, I'm looking to try and get rid of a medication, then you want advanced plan. It is meant for healing and repair. Core plan is for maintenance. They're all explained in the Nutrition Plans book. If you don't have this, I'm going to tell you that's probably the best resource. The recipes in the plan, anything that's in green in the plan, that you guys have the challenge, it's from this book. Okay? I was talking with a patient of mine who's been around for a number of years, and we were joking. She goes, I think I bought about 3 or 4 of those. She goes, I don't even have the book, but I photocopied all the recipes. I probably own 6 of them. I know where one of them is. Your friends will want them. They are great tools. So if you don't have it, I'd recommend getting that tonight. It's also out of print, so we have the last ones that they have right now. So number 1 change, we got to get rid of the sugar, the things that turn to sugar. Number 2 is we got to rethink fat. So you want to eat healthy fats and get rid of, you say bad fats, but I'm going to change it by saying damaged fats. 70% of moms pick low fat and when they're shopping because they think it's healthier for the family. In North America, we have more low fat foods, we have more high fat people. So the low fat is not working out for us. So raw nuts and seeds, coconut milk, coconut oil, all good fats, organic grass-fed dairy, yogurts, grass-fed cheese, all good things. So how we got lied to.
For all of human history into 1 year, we've only been farming and eating grain since about yesterday, which is when we became shorter and fatter. We only started consuming processed vegetable oils about 10 minutes ago, which is when heart disease became our #1 killer. So after examining all this human history, the experts came to the obvious conclusion. We need to eat a lot more of these. And so they convinced us that human health depends on foods we didn't eat for more than 99% of our entire existence. How did this happen? In the 1950s, a biochemist named Ansel Keys published a study that compared heart disease and fat consumption in a half-dozen countries. The more
Just going to catch up for a second. It seems to be lagging.
In the 1950s, a biochemist named Ansel Keys published a study that compared heart disease and fat consumption in a half-dozen countries. The more fat, the more heart disease. The trend line was unmistakable. Just one little problem. Keys left out countries where people eat a lot of fat but have very little heart disease, like Holland and Norway. He also left out countries where people don't eat much fat but do have a lot of heart disease, like Chile. In fact, Keys had reliable data from 22 countries, and the results were all over the place. But you can't make a big splash in the scientific community with a trend line that looks like this.
Sorry, it's ruining the video.
Scientific community with a trend line that looks like this. So Keys did what any dedicated researcher would do. He threw out the data that didn't fit and published his results. His punishment for this bit of scientific chicanery was to get his picture on the cover of Time magazine. Keys became known as the father of the lipid hypothesis, which says that eating saturated fat raises the cholesterol in your blood, and high cholesterol in your blood clogs your arteries and causes heart disease.
The hypothesis that when you eat high fat, that produces high cholesterol, and that cholesterol produces heart disease, is wrong in every one of those links.
This whole idea that dietary fat causes cholesterol problems is sort of a myth. The whole idea that cholesterol problems lead to heart disease is a myth.
The theory is completely and totally wrong. It was a theory that was made out of whole cloth and then pushed.
The term artery clogging saturated fat, it's as though it's all one word.
It's become part of the zeitgeist. Everybody knows saturated fat is bad for you, but when you get back and you start looking at the medical literature and you root back through to find out where this whole idea came from, it's bogus.
So that's how we got to understanding of fat. And the thing to remember here is it was a hypothesis. The lipid hypothesis. That's what drove the whole thing. Dr. Paul Dudley, who is known as the father of American cardiology, so he was published on a stamp. That's a pretty good goal to have. You got to have your face on a stamp. He said, I began my practice as a cardiologist in 1920, and I never saw an MI or a heart attack until 1928. Back in the heart attack free days, before 1920, fats were butter and lard, and I think we could all benefit from that kind of diet that we had at a time when no one ever heard of the word corn oil. Because everyone's been told that fat's bad, especially saturated fat. So here's a study that looked at almost 350,000 people. They followed them for up to or over 20 years in some cases. And they found there was no significant evidence for concluding that dietary saturated fat is associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, or cardiovascular disease. It's got no link. And that's 350,000 people. Yet everyone's still scared of fat, right? Everyone thinks it's going to clog their arteries, it's going to make them fat, and it's the exact opposite.
That's right.
So, like I said, it was a lipid hypothesis, but the facts are that 75% of patients hospitalized for heart attacks fall within the recommended limits for their cholesterol. Low cholesterol is associated with higher mortality from heart disease. And because of all that misinformation is why we see all the flip-flop. First, cholesterol's bad in 84, then by 99 it's good. And in 2014 they said, you know what, we were wrong on that whole fat thing, start eating butter. That's why it's all over the place. People are so confused, because it was never based on science, it was based on hypothesis or belief, but never on fact. So now you guys have the facts. This is why fats are so important. Now there's not good fat and bad fat. All fats are great fats. All fats are great fats, unless you damage them. So there's great fat and there's damaged fat. That's the only two there are. All fats build cell membranes. They help you absorb vitamins. They protect you from temperatures. They are the building blocks of your hormones. They lower inflammation. They're needed for detoxification of your body. Makes up 70% of your brain and is needed for fat burning and brain function. So all important things you need fat for. If you don't have enough fat, you're never going to do any of those or protect your brain health. Obesity and disease are linked to damaged fats. Obesity and disease have never been linked to healthy fats. But everyone just hears about fats. So weight loss and fat intake. So a damaged fat, everyone's heard of trans fat, right? That's a damaged fat. So you have trans fat, half of it, it's got a half-life of 51 days, so half of that fat is still in your body 51 days later. Because it's damaged, your body doesn't recognize it, doesn't know what to do with it, it can't use it. So it sits there. So 51 days later, after having a trans fat, it's still there. 3 months later, you still have a quarter of it in you. Right? That's why damaged fats are so bad, because the body doesn't recognize it, it can't do anything with it. Again, labels are misleading. So Skippy peanut butter says right on it, no trans fats. But any hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil is a trans fat. And if you look at the ingredient list, hydrogenated vegetable oil. So how do they get away from that? Because if they have less than 500 milligrams, they can call themselves trans fat free. 500 milligrams per serving. Not per jar. So what do? They change their serving size. That's all they've done. Yeah. Like go look at like Lay's potato chips. I think serving size is 4 chips or something like that. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Oh, just 4. That's all. Right? I've never seen anyone do that. And that's the thing. That's why, again, this is advertising. This is what you want to look at, the ingredients. And again, if there's anything on that list that you don't know what it is, you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. Right? So like, if you like, for instance, you don't know what maltodextrin is. If you can ask yourself, where's the maltodextrin farm? You don't know where that is? That's not for you. Now it's beyond trans fat. So again, it's damaged fat. So any vegetable oil is a damaged fat. So these are things like soybean oil, corn oil, safflower, cottonseed, canola, margarine. And these things are found in virtually every bread, cracker, cookery, and salad dressing on the commercial market. So they're all damaged, and you know what? They have a great shelf life. Olive oil, that'd be a much better thing to have in those things. Butter, much better thing. But they spoil, right? They can't be left in light on the shelf at temperature for long periods of time, or they'll go rotten. These ones, no problem with any of that. Okay? So those things you're looking for, those are bad. Healthy fats, olive oil, coconut oil, grape seeds, okay. Avocado oil, those are all good things.
Cold press.
Cold press is better, absolutely, especially when it comes to things like olive oil. So why are damaged fats so bad? Because damaged fats literally, they clog the cell membrane. They gum it up. So then what happens is nutrients can't get in your cell and poisons can't get out of your cell. So the cell is basically going to die. That's why damaged fats are so bad. They basically suffocate the cells, like putting a plastic bag over it. And so, that's a good thing. So, lots of people talk about, when we talk about supplementation, right? People talk about, detoxes, they talk about multivitamins, they're talking about those type of things. But number one thing I put on that list would be a healthy fat. Because without a healthy fat, none of those vitamins and stuff you put in will even get in the cell. It can't get in if the cell isn't healthy. That makes sense to everybody? What I use personally, the Omega-Val Synergy, so it's omega-3, 6, 7, 9. The key is the ratio. So you gotta have the right ratio, otherwise your body doesn't use it. Everyone's heard of omega-3, and we're talking about that here in a second. It's because our ratios are so messed up. That's what I'm talking about omega-3. But you need a balance if you're actually gonna fuel the body with the right things and actually help rebuild the cell membrane. We use this one specifically because basically it's a potency. It's 40 to 50% higher potency, means you actually absorb it better than the industry standard. Right? So yes, any good supplement is going to be more expensive, but you get what you pay for. You'd be way better off taking something good and taking a lot less of it than taking something cheap. Okay? And this will last 3 months for one person. Okay? So it's cheap when you think about it that way. Third thing we want to think about is the protein. So good proteins are basically animals that were raised naturally. Right? So are animals supposed to live in a cage or roam around? Roam around. So that's a pretty simple thing. So another big thing for beef is they need to be grass-fed. You want to be free-range eggs, wild-caught fish. Do avoid pork and shellfish regardless. They should just be considered treats because they eat a lot of toxins and they're going to accumulate that for you. Even the World Health Organization recognized this. So the reason animal products have to, you want organic or natural, is all based on the toxic accumulation. So you're not what you eat. You are, you're what you, whatever the animal ate is what you've ingested. So everyone knows that organic is more expensive. If you do organic anything, go animal product first. Any animal product that is non-organic is 10 times more toxic than the vegetable or fruit. So from a benefit basis, I'd rather you eat all non-organic vegetables and get some organic animal products. Does that make sense to everybody? It's about the toxic bioaccumulation that happens there. Because here's the scary thing. 80% of all the antibiotics that are used in North America are used on farm animals. And they're not used as a preventative. They're used because they're in unhealthy conditions to keep them alive long enough to get them to market. The challenge is, they got all these antibiotics are full of steroids and growth hormones. No, sorry, not growth hormone in Canada, but there's a lot of other hormones are put into them. And then, when we get them, we get all of that. We get all those antibiotic residues. We get all the hormones. We get all the injections. We get all of that in that animal. That's why you want to get away from that. You want grass-fed, you want organic, you want free-run. That's what you're looking for. Because, look around. So, look at kids nowadays. They hit puberty way sooner, right? Because of all the hormones that are around. Look at the hormone cancers that are out there. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, those are all skyrocketing. Again, all hormone-driven, or even just hormone issues in people nowadays. Right? There's way more of these issues, and it's driven by what we're putting in our bodies, and we're starting to see the side effects of it now. The big thing we're talking about animal products here will be, again, we're talking about the omega ratios. So when we talk about a normal healthy omega ratio in a body is actually omega-6 to 3, should be 4 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. That's what you want. The average North American is 20 to 1. That's why everyone talks about omega-3, because we're so out of whack. We're 5 times out of whack. Grass-fed beef, everyone's told that red meat is bad. If it's grass-fed, it's roamed the field, it's ate pasture, its omega ratio is 4 to 1. Exactly what our omega ratio is supposed to be. Grain-fed is 21 to 1. That's the issue. We got to make sure if the animal's raised properly, then we're okay. You had a question, Jonathan?
Yeah, so when you eat those farm animal products, so that causes antibiotic resistance too, right?
Oh yeah.
Because if you eat a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's one of our big issues. That's why there's so much stuff that's we've created an environment that only superbugs can survive. But it's all over the place. So they say you're getting something. I had the stat in one of the other ones, but it's something like 70 or 80 antibiotic residues if you consume like non-organic milk or something like that. Like those are the residues you get in that, right? So we get that, and that's what becomes an issue to our immune system. Solutions to this. So if you're doing the challenge, this is something that's like breakfast in my house on a regular basis. Is you'll have a lot of smoothies. So the maximized protein. So this is whey protein. So whey protein is one of the easiest proteins for your body to absorb, and it's identical to the protein in our body. Okay, so really good that way, and you'll see a bunch of smoothie recipes in the challenge. So that's something you want to get that way. The reason you want to get this one versus these ones, it's not heat treated, so it's still raw. It's a whole food. The body can absorb it. It's on organically grass-fed only cows, so it's right. These ones, the super advanced, got artificial flavors and sucralose, which is sugar. This one has maltodextrin, which is also sugar and known to slow metabolism. This is the thing. There's so many things that are loaded full of things that give them shelf life and make them taste sweet, right? Whey already has a bit of a sweet taste to it as well, anyway, right? So this is what we use in my family. My son's had that since he was a baby.
Delicious.
What's that?
It's
Delicious. There we go. It's delicious. So a couple things when you're doing this. So the reason it's part of the challenge is it does stimulate fat burning. So if you start your day with protein, something that's easily digestible, it's not a load on the digestive system, it will stimulate fat burning. It's great whole food nutrition. And like I said, and a lot of great smoothies. I always use greens in my smoothies as well. Another piece though with this, it does have the building blocks for glutathione, so it does support detox as well, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But it's something that can also help with that. So it's the 30-day challenge. So at the beginning, it's got kind of you set out your goals, what you want. And I'm going to recommend when you're doing this, you do it with a partner. So if you come here for any reason, whatever that goal is, just tell someone about it. You can tell me, you can tell my team, and so someone you're doing it with. If you've told someone, you become more accountable just by yourself anyway. If there's somebody you actually do the challenge with, that much better. But even if it's not in the same household, just be like, hey, we're trying this, and just touch base, challenges come across, etc. Let us know if you have challenges too. Okay? I've been eating this way now since around 2009. So I've been doing it for a long time. I've seen the pitfalls. I know where it's easy to fail. I've also come across what solutions are to make it simple, because it's just normal in our house now. It's not weird anymore. It's just normal. Next we're going to do is toxins. So top 5 toxins are personal care products, so the things we put in our body, on our bodies. Household products like cleaning products. Herbicides and pesticides, since they spray on your fruits and vegetables. Cookware and plastics. So those are the top 5 things. What they show up if you're toxic is they'll show up as fatigue, stubborn weight loss, bad breath, constipation, aches and pains, and skin reactions, things like eczema, acne. Those are signs that you are dealing with toxicity. So, like for instance, if your goal is fat loss and you're like, I've been trying everything, it's not budging, I guarantee there's a toxicity issue there as well. So, toxins, if it was left in your bloodstream, your body's got to deal with that, and it continues to poison the body. So the body's smart, so it's going to lock them away, so it stores toxins in fat. And that fat will never be burned until you get rid of the toxins. The body won't let it get touched until you get the toxins out of the cells. So a couple steps we want to do is number 1, we're going to talk about where they come from. Stop poisoning yourself. So stop putting the toxins in. And number 2, get the ones that are in you, get them out. Because the reality is it's hard to avoid all toxins nowadays. I would say it's virtually impossible to avoid them. So this is the number of toxins the average female puts on a day. 475. So there's lots. So it's looking for, so even if it comes down to like cosmetics, there's a company called My Essence that's all natural based. There's lots of options, just got to look for them. Okay? A lot of the health food stores and things like that, they'll carry natural options that aren't full of the chemicals and the things that we literally poison ourselves with. You're like, same with guys, deodorants, all this sort of stuff, all that sort of stuff. So you do want to make sure you're doing something to detox. So Again, supplements, people think about, you know, the nutrients we're putting in, but if you're not doing something to detoxify, I'd really think about the toxic piece of this. You want to be doing things that are helping your body get rid of the toxins. Your body's got a built-in detox system. For most people, it's overwhelmed and it's not working anymore, and you're just storing more toxins. So like we talked about, the maximized protein has building blocks for glutathione, which will help your body detox. But if you need more than just a little bit of help, that's what I would recommend, the paleo cleanse. I do this 3 times a year, and I would recommend that people do it at least once a year. It helps support your body's natural detoxification system. And it's 2 parts to it. One, it dumps the toxins from the cell, so it gets it out of your cells, and then absorbs it almost like a sponge to be safely transported outside of your body. Most other detoxes are not a detox, they're a cleanse. Yes, they can get the body to unload toxins, but it just unloads them from the cell for the body to reprocess. 10 to 15% leave, the other 90% stay in your body. You just retox it all. So unless you're doing something to dump them but also absorb them for safe extraction from your body, then you continue just to cycle them through. You're not actually getting less toxic. So the paleo cleanse does that. Like I said, this is a good deep cleaning support for your body. In a perfect world, you do that. It takes a month. You would do that, and then you would support it after. So you need to have healthy fats. Remember, poisons get out of the cell with a healthy cell membrane. So you got to have healthy fat there. But then 3 months later, you do the curcumin, resveratrol, and then EGCG. So 1 a month for 3 months after, and then you can report that you can redo the detox again. What those are doing is once you clean the body out, the curcumin, resveratrol, and EGCG, they support the detoxification to keep it open and running fast. That makes sense to everybody? So it can be looked at as a system like that that's done over like a 4-month stretch. That makes sense to everybody? The biggest thing we deal with in toxins now are the endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are things that mimic hormones in your body. Pesticides, herbicides, plastic containers, pharmaceuticals, and dietary components. Phytoestrogens are the big ones. They mimic estrogen. So they have an organizational effect during development. So it determines how kids grow. And then they mimic, antagonize, or alter hormones in your body. That's why they're such a big issue. They're also the biggest the biggest category of toxins that we deal with right now. The other issue with wheat, so we talked about how grains we want to get rid of. So people talk about wheat as gluten. Gluten's not your biggest issue with wheat. It's the fact that all of it is sprayed with glyphosate, which is an endocrine disrupting chemical. That's Roundup. And it's shown to totally throw your endocrine system sideways. So that's why I want to get rid of wheat as much as possible. Okay? And if you're going to eat it, then you want to look for whole, sprouted, organic, wherever you can.
But even so, the modern wheat, our original wheat had 16 chromosomes.
Yeah.
Our modern wheat right now has 42. Because we've hybrided it and we've modified it.
And the body hasn't
Your
adapted
wheat
as fast.
today grows about this high instead of 4 feet. Years ago, the seed heads are so big they fall over. They had to make special combines to pick the wheat up off the ground. Okay, this is what the problem is. It's not the wheat.
Yeah.
It's the process that
It's
we've
what
done to the
they've
wheat
done
over
to
the
it.
years.
Yeah. And the issue is, you know now too, they spray it with all this junk.
Everything.
And then what do? Pile it all in, right? And as we look at that one of those first charts I looked at, the top 2 sources of calories, all based off of this.
Yep.
And you wonder why we're getting so many toxins.
It's addictive. Wheat, they say today is addictive.
Yeah, because it turns to sugar. Like we talked about, sugar's 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Right? So that's a much bigger drug issue. This is also going to be a thing where it comes down to reading labels. So like I said, if you don't know where the farm is for it, you shouldn't ingest it. So like there'll be a recipe in your challenge for a strawberry smoothie that has things like coconut milk or almond milk, and it's actually it's got real stuff in it. Like probably have the whey proteins of strawberries in it. This is the ingredient list of the strawberry milkshake from Burger King. There's no strawberries on that list, there's no milk on that list. But the strawberry milkshake. It's all chemicals, right? And so that's where it comes down to just reading labels. The biggest issue with toxins is we do know that they drive cancer. That's a #1 issue with toxins. That was a big issue for my brother. But according to all the science, cancer is a preventable disease with lifestyle change. So if you have cancer, you've had cancer, you want to start making the lifestyle change so it doesn't come back or you can beat it this time. If you don't have cancer and you don't want it in the future, make the change now. Otherwise, that's why the rates are so high that 1 in 2 will get cancer because of what we're subjecting our body to. Again, we lifestyle ourselves into the disease, so we can choose to lifestyle ourselves out, or ideally, change lifestyle now so you never end up with the disease in the first place. And it's gotten so bad with the chemicals that we can go around and we can talk about which chemicals produce which cancers. So it's all laid out there. So that's where we want to start changing these things. We want to start getting the toxins out of the body, stop putting them in by knowing where they come from. And I got another video for you guys, I think.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide.
So 2 roads diverge in the woods, and I took the one less traveled. So you will spend the rest of your life, you know, your money, your resources, and you're going to spend them on one way or the other. You get to choose the result at the other end, though. Right? It's I know we all know these people who, you know, they seemingly ate a bunch of junk and they smoked and they drank, and yet they're still around at 80 and we're not quite sure how. And that's when people start to think it's all about luck. And yet, how many of us know the people who did eat well and did exercise and they still got sick, right? They still died early, it still hurts, right? And you're thinking, like, how does this happen? There has to be a reason. And you're right, there is a reason, right? And the reason is, how was their body running in the first place? Like, this is the reason the reason I'm a chiropractor in the first place. Like, with all the knowledge and all the extra certification, everything I have, I can do a lot of things. There's a reason I choose to be a chiropractor. It's because there's only one thing that runs your body. But what's the one thing that runs everything inside of you? It's your brain, right? So literally 15 days after conception, before everybody even knew she was pregnant with you, the first thing developed inside of you was your brain and your spinal cord. From there, nerves come off your cord, literally like branches off a tree, and every single cell, organ, tissue grows off those nerves like fruit on a tree. That's how you were created, that's how you run and function to this day. So for anything to run inside of you, all that life runs from your brain down the cord, out those nerves. The spine's job in that is to protect it, right? It's the armor for your nervous system. And to do it, it's got to be straight from the front. Got to have those 3 C shapes from the side. And in that position, spinal cord nerves are perfectly protected, which means all the life actually gets from your brain out to run your body. You will run and heal at 100% of your ability. So then, if you start to eat better, you'll see health benefits from that. Now you start to exercise, you'll see health benefits from that. But if there's been any damage to the spine, right? Like, say, sitting at a desk all day at your computer, working, right? Old accidents, slips and falls, sports injuries, right? The different emotional stressors that show up, right? We know the 3 things that cause subluxation are physical, chemical, emotional stressors. those show up and it's going to change the shape of your spine. So if your spine gets damaged, that puts pressure on your spinal cord. Do you get 100% of the life from your brain to your body if that happens? No, right? So over time, do you build more health or more disease? More disease. And it's as simple as that. There's cause and effect. So there's definitely, we covered like the things you should be eating and how you're going to pull off the plan. And we talked about like all these different detox stuff. But if the body doesn't run right in the first place, it really has little benefit. That's why, like my brother, exercised, ate fantastic, still got cancer, because he was missing an essential piece. Did Pastor Lynette stick around? She's traveling, her family member just died. So I know we talked about Rose. I know a lot of you have these similar stories as well. I want to talk about Pastor Lynette just for a quick second. And this is understanding the power that's in you. So I met Pastor Lynette probably 2 years ago. And she came in for an exam, had some symptoms, but chose not to start care because life was just too busy, right? And again, we all do this, right? We all know people like, I should be doing something, but I'm just busy right now. I'll do that later, right? She came back about 3 months ago because one of our other patients, Marguerite, who actually brought her in today, and that's why she's probably gone as well, brought her here and said enough's enough because she was in so much pain. She was at bed in home and not getting out of bed because the problem had just progressed. So Marguerite said enough's enough, you're coming with me. We started getting her adjusted. She had been put on a whole bunch of medication because of she had lower back pain, like down her legs, she couldn't feel her legs, all this sort of stuff. Off of the medication, but then a couple weeks ago she's like, just look at these pants, Dr. Brian, like I'm putting on pants I haven't worn in years. She's lost like 15 pounds, hasn't changed any nutrition, right? And then just before she had to leave, there was a death in the family, she just had to leave last week. She said, so I've been doing these follow-up tests because I've had these cysts on my kidneys and they wanted to check in on them. And they did the scan, they said they couldn't find it, so they wanted to do another scan, they said it's gone, we don't know where it's gone. And that's just the power in you. You turn the power on inside, your body's capable of anything, but it's letting it run properly again. The body was designed for health, it was designed for success. You just got to support it and work within the laws the body was designed by. And if you're doing that, then we start to see the success. To get all these results we're talking about tonight, though, you do have to think differently. And I got one last video for you.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So to succeed, you have to be different. And you have to be okay with being different, with being weird, whatever that is, crazy, whatever you want to call it. Because if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get where everyone else ends up right now. And what the numbers show right now is that the average person at 60 is taking medication and living with at least one chronic disease. And if that's not the future you want for yourself, then you have to be different. And you have to be okay leaving here and people telling you, no, you shouldn't eat so much fat. Oh no, you need grains. Do you really need to get adjusted all the time? Like, those are the things that you need to understand are coming, and you need to be okay knowing, no, I'm doing it different on purpose. I'm doing it different on purpose. I don't want what's normal. Right? Like, I'll tell you the reality is, I don't want to fit into a society that isn't working out. Like, that's not what I want for myself, not what I want for my family, so we're doing things differently. And I want to warn you first that that's what's going to show up. So these next 30 days is the first time you've done a challenge, you're going to get these questions from the people around you being like, why, you're being weird. right? And I want to warn you, it's going to come. So if you know it's coming, then when it shows up, like, oh, that's what Dr. B was talking about. I'm okay with that, and I want to be weird because I don't want to be what the normal is, right? Now the thing is, how many of you know someone that needs this information right now? Right? And we got some open seats right here. Like they should have been here tonight. And so the other sheet you guys have with you is to help my friends and family. Whoever you're thinking of, and I know some of you, I know there's some people you want to get help for and you're not sure how to get them help because they're pretty stubborn individuals. If they're on your head right now, just put them down. Just put them down, we'll talk with you, we'll see if there's a way that we can help them, maybe now or in the future, right? But I'm going to tell you, if they're in your head right now, write them down, because like I've committed, my team's committed, my family's committed to do whatever we can to help people in our community change the direction of their health. There's this law called the law of diminishing intent, which means the further away you actually do something you said you were going to do, less chance you'll actually do it. So if there's someone that's in your head saying you're going to write them down tomorrow, it's not going to happen. So if there's anyone you're thinking of right now, write them down. My team's going to collect... team? Jess? Anybody? Is that kind of a workshop for you? Are we doing a draw at the end of this? Okay. So as you're writing down the names, they're going to collect them from you. They'll put you in a draw for some draws you have at the end. As you're doing that, I just want to read. This. It's called the Dash. I got this from the new chairman of Max Living. So his name's Cliff Hardick. He joined Max Living at 70 years old. He's had a storied career. He's a very well-known chiropractor. He's been all over. He's done a lot of stuff. And he got involved in this and started taking out a whole bunch of more work at 70 because he's like, he said, I want to make sure I've left an impact when I leave. And so he read this, and I want to read this to you. It's called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted the first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we lived and love how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So, when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, how would you be proud of things they say about how you spent your dash? And that's what I want you to consider moving forward. Like, no matter where you are, you can change where you're at. The people around you want you strong, want you healthy. People around you want your support as well. So if anyone's got names, we're just going to collect tickets, do a quick draw, and then anyone's got questions, I'm here for those.